The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. My name is Julia Talbot, and I'm here at the Department of Family and Support Services Spring Forward Reentry and Employment Navigation Program RFP for this is the applicant webinar. This RFP was released on February 17th. The due date is March 23rd. Just a few little bits of housekeeping. Due to the volume of participants, everybody has been placed on mute. We ask that you submit your questions via the question, the question feature in the webinar software, and that we can respond to that. We will respond to them at the midpoint, and then also after going through the slides. We also have some staff on hand that can probably might be able to answer those questions while the presentation is going on. But we'll also read through them just so everybody can hear. If you're having any technical issues, please notify us through the question feature. And then also, and perhaps most importantly, this webinar is being recorded. A copy of the recording will be posted on the DFSS YouTube channel with a link to the recording, and a PDF of the PowerPoint slides will also be posted to the DFSS webpage. I have the webpage address there, and you will look for the specific funding opportunity, and those are all found under the alerts or funding opportunities areas in the DFSS webpage. So just so you know, you will be able to get at this information. Give us about 3 to 5 business days to get the files translated and posted on YouTube, and then posted onto the DFSS website. There's always people who want to know when they can get it. It takes us a little while to process all that stuff and get it up to you, but we will get it up to you. So that's that. I can't thank you all so much for coming today. It's really great to see you. I'm hoping that it will be a little less rainy than it was yesterday. So today I'm going to be joined by Cindy Rivera, who is the program manager over in Workforce Services, who's going to be running this program. She's also supported by many people in her department, also Trinity Dobby and Mark Sanders II, who is the deputy over Workforce Services. So I'm going to turn things over to Cindy, and she's going to go over the scope of the program, and then we'll take that break for questions, and I'll go over a few some housekeeping about how do you actually make a submission in the City of Chicago's e-procurement environment. So I'm going to ask Cindy to unmute here, and let's see, and hopefully she can take it away. Cindy?
Thanks, Julia. Hi, my name is Cindy Rivera. I am the project manager for the Spring Forward program, and I look forward to the possibility of working with your agency on this exciting program. So let me go over the DFSS mission and priorities. Of course, our mission overall as a department is working with our community partners. We connect with the Chicago residents and families to resources that build stability, support their well-being, and empower them to thrive. Our priorities include delivering and supporting high quality and innovative comprehensive services that empower clients to thrive. We collaborate with community partners, sister agencies, public officials on programs and policies that improve Chicagoans' lives and advance systemic change. We inform the public of resources available to them through DFSS and its community partners, and we steward DFSS resources responsibly and effectively. Sorry, there's a little lag between slides. So, and we also want to give you an overall of our equity statement of principles. Racial equity focuses on the social construction of race and how it's been used to unjustly distribute opportunity and resources based on a person's skin color, heritage, ethnicity, and/or national origin. The City of Chicago defines equity as both an outcome and a process. As an outcome, equity results in fair and just access to opportunity and resources that provide everyone the ability to thrive. I keep on saying drive, but it's thrive. As a process, equity requires a new way of doing business. So we prioritize access and opportunities for a group who have the greatest need. We methodologically evaluate benefits and burdens produced by seemingly neutral systems and practices. And we engage those that are most impacted by the problems we seek to address as experts in their own experiences strategists in co-creating solutions, and evaluators of successes. So the purpose of the RFPs, as you know, Spring Forward actually has two components. So we have our reentry and I always want to say navigation for some reason. So it's reentry and employment navigation program, and then we have our housing. So the reentry employing and housing navigation pilot programs are to support returning residents from Cook County Jail or the Illinois Department of Corrections to Chicago who are at the higher risk of housing insecurity, homelessness, and recidivism. So with the Spring Forward pilot, spring in caps means selected pre-release for intensive navigation support going forward. So DFSS has released two separate RFPs to solicit proposals from respondents who can administer the following two programs. The first one is the Reentry and Employment Navigation Program. Our second is the Housing Navigation Program. So respondents are eligible to submit proposals for both RFPs. Again, each RFP will have separate webinars to review its components, but this webinar will be focused on the Reentry and Employment Navigation Program. An overview. So the goal of this program specifically is to support up to 150 individuals returning to Chicago, again from CCJ, which is the Cook County Jail, and IDOC, which is the Illinois Department of Corrections. So we're looking at 300 for 2 years, and it's to provide wraparound services. It includes reentry and employment services, which will facilitate them the access to obtain quality employment opportunities. And this is to, again, to build their stability, to support their well-being, and empower them to thrive. The service overview, again, is to identify on your end and facilitate access to wraparound supportive services. And this is for paid in-demand job skills training and work-based learning programs, and again, to provide quality employment opportunities. And which is our target population? So we're looking for people that fit the following criteria. They have to be Chicago residents that are 18 years or older. They have to be returning from CCJ, release from CCJ and IDOC within the past 18 months. And these people have to be at the highest risk of housing insecurity, homelessness, and recidivism. What are our key performance metrics? So we're looking for the agency to make sure to follow these metrics. So we're looking at 75% of your participants will be successfully enrolled and complete a workforce training or work-based program. 75 of the participants enrolled in training will receive an industry recognized credential. 75 will be placed in employment. 70% will meet a 30, 90, and 180-day retention benchmarks in unsubsidized employment. And then 80% of those individuals should be earning wages at or above the minimum wages in Chicago. And what are our priorities? So we want to make sure that our agency demonstrates partnerships with the following, of course, with DFSS, with Cook County Jail, with IDOC, with Chicago-based transitional housing sites, and the DFSS Housing Navigation Partner. Again, we want to stress that we're looking for 150 of these participants will receive an intake assessment annually, and of course 300 for the 2 years. The funding, as you may read, this is going to be a 2-year program with the initial contract period of May 2023 and going to December of 2024. So that's the contract period, right? The total funding is $3,652,000 for the duration of the 2 fiscal years. And the funding is made available from the U.S. Department of Treasury from their American Rescue Plan, which we call ARP. So background, so why employment and housing navigation? So we know that having a record hinders an individual's ability to access affordable housing and obtain meaningful employment. So in addition, we understood that since the pandemic, these returning residents have had to face a diminished job market with fewer supports and an increased likelihood of mental health problems. So we looked at data that was obtained from our Homeless Management Information System, which is HMIS, the Illinois Department of Public Health, and the Cook County Sheriff. So we looked at over 2,000 individuals have circled through all 3 systems, right? Only 15% have accessed permanent housing. in the continuum of care. 1 in 3 of those cycling in and out of jail has spent an average of 320 days in jail over a 4-year period. Chicagoans in both Cook County and Department of Corrections with a stay longer than 90 days are not considered homeless upon release, therefore making them ineligible to access interim housing. And that's under the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, and that's their definition. Institutional stays, which includes incarceration and patient mental health institutions, longer than 90 days constitutes a break in homelessness, which essentially resets the clock for the length of homelessness. So what's the goal of the program? Again, is stressing that we want to make sure that annually the agency will support 150 participants with reentry and employment services to facilitate that access to resources and employment opportunity. And doing this would improve their economic and social outcomes. And just to give them an opportunity to start reintegrating back into the communities. And we think about like, so how are we going to do this? So we want to make sure that we're going to build on that existing infrastructure for reentry workforce development, which is designed to connect individuals from jail, from the Cook County Jail and from NIDOC, again, to obtain stable employment and get wraparound supportive services. Service overview. So we are looking to facilitate access to affordable permanent housing, include wraparound supportive services, job training, and quality employment opportunities. And we're very specific in that. So we're looking at the primary activities. So we're looking at respondents to be very specific, have this robust, detailed plan, and how it is they're going to achieve these things. Outlined here is the 6 that we're really going to be looking at. So we're asking for these respondents to really detail your outreach and recruitment piece. You know, how is it are you going to reach these respondents? What's going to be your intake screening and assessment? What is that going to look like? We're also looking at housing navigation pilot referrals. You are going to be working closely with the housing navigation delegate agency, whoever that's going to be. So we want to look at the process for that. We want to look at what is it that you're going to do for reentry navigation services? What kind of services are you going to be providing? Looking at what type of job training and placement services do you have in mind in order under this RFP. We're also looking at what type of services, which include wraparound, and what kind of support would you be providing to these participants as well. So breakdown of primary activities. So we want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what we're looking for. So with outreach and engagement, we really looking for this robust community outreach and recruitment strategies. Again, how are you going to get them in through the door? We're looking at a collaboration with DFSS Community Reentry Support Services. How would that look like? And we're also looking at how are you going to utilize technology and social media platforms to get the word out in order to make sure that it goes beyond just not like initial, but just make sure that the word is out to everyone in the city. Their intake and screening assessment. So with this, we want to look at how would that intake screening and assessment look like. So with something that DFSS will work with you in order to put together, and you know, with your input and our input and putting this comprehensive assessment together, and which it should focus on the client's need for housing, employment, mental health resources, and anything else that you see that you should be providing services to the participants. We're also looking at the housing navigation pilot referrals. So as this reentry partner, you will make mandated referrals to the agency administering the housing navigation program. Not that you'll be doing any type of housing, but we're looking at having like a pre-housing assessment that at the point that you would assess the participant and see if they're eligible to obtain housing services through the housing navigation agency. Reentry navigation services. We're looking at for someone that will provide connections to housing, workforce, and supported services, utilizing strong community-based network of services and or referrals. We're also looking at job training and placement. How are you going to connect participants to temporary subsidized jobs? We also want to make sure that you have the ability to provide transitional jobs that last 12 weeks or longer and ensure that they're working a minimum of 12 hours a week and at the Chicago minimum wage or higher. In regards to the wraparound services and supports, we want to make sure that you have referrals with, again, your network of services and directly provide or make referrals for services. We also want to see the documented linkages with various organizations. So we want to see what kind of services for mental health, what organizations do you have relationships with that you could provide these referrals to the participants, for education, for any other type of support, like for bus passes, for anything else that you feel that's important for the participant to succeed. The target population, again, the participant must meet all three of the following criteria. They have to be a Chicago resident, 18 years or older. They have to be released within the past 18 months from Cook County or the Illinois Department of Corrections. And they have to be part of a household in which one or more individuals can demonstrate a risk of experiencing homelessness. And we're not talking about like literally homelessness. It could be at risk of homelessness, housing insecurities, or recidivism. Again, with the key performance metrics, this is something that will be used to track your progress and make sure that you're achieving the outcome goals and assess success. And we went through this earlier. You could go over it again. We're talking about successfully enrolling your participants into certain workforce training, getting that industry recognized credential, being placed in employment, meeting these benchmarks at the retention for subsidized employment, and ensuring that these individuals are earning wages at or above the Chicago minimum. In addition, DFSS intends to track additional output metrics that we see fit. Of course, we'll work with you to let you know what else we're going to be tracking, and this will also be used to assess success in the program. Additional performance metrics. So the following could be used to monitor again and just recognize intermediate progress towards the original 5 performance measures. So we're looking at 150 individuals will receive an intake annually. So let me say this before I forget. So we know that this is supposed to be for 1 year, right? And we understand that the program is not going to start to May. So we will work with you in order to look at those numbers and revise them so they could show like from May to December. So don't freak out when you say 150, you know, for this is supposed to be for 1 year. So we'll go ahead and we'll adjust it accordingly. And whoever's going to be the selected partner, we'll go ahead and we'll discuss it with them. But in general, overall, this is what the program should be looking like if it's from January, like say for December. So again, looking at 150 individuals will receive the intake, 300 for the duration of the contract, which is 2 years. 105 of those participants will become employed in high quality jobs and are above the minimum wage and retain that employment for 30 days. And that's a total of 210 for 2 years. 85 of those participants will reach the 30-day benchmark and will retain employment at a quality job at or above the minimum wage. That's a total of 170 for the duration. Again, we encourage agency to propose additional indicators and metrics that you feel that we should be aware of, just to track your success in the program.
This is Julia. Could you maybe specify a little bit what we mean when we say high quality job or a quality job? Is it really just looking for something that's above minimum wage?
Correct.
Hi everyone, Trinity here. I apologize, I'm sick, so excuse my voice. What we mean by like a quality job is a job that establishes some sort of career pathway. So something that is full-time, something that will yield a career pathway for the long term, and something that hopefully is over the minimum wage, but also a good work environment, benefits, vacation time, the ability to transition upward within the company. Traditionally, returning residents have been placed in more factory jobs or what some would call blue collar. What we're looking for in this program is to really connect returning residents, our participants, to more entry-level positions. Again, positions that might not necessarily require a credential, but maybe experience, but jobs that again will yield them a career pathway. So rather than, a job in a factory, maybe looking at, early childhood development, becoming a nurse, becoming a teacher's assistant, something where they can progress within a given industry.
Thanks, Trinity. Case management and data reporting requirements. So these are the key requirements under the case management and data reporting. So so whoever the selected partner will be, you will have, we will have periodic check-ins with you guys, right? We'll also be asking you to collect and report client-level demographic data, performance data, and service data. We will be also asking of submission of reports by the 4th of every month. We require the agency to input participant data into our enterprise case management version, which is ECM, and additional reports as needed. So it's not only going to be these, but it could be something, again, that we see that we should be reporting or you guys should be letting us know. So as the program progresses, we'll probably be identifying new types of data that we will be requiring for the agency to submit. Programmatic funding. So for this program, we'll be funded with the amount of $3,652,000. Again, this is an award from the U.S. Department of Treasury via the ARP. DFSS anticipates one award amount of $3,652,000 for 2 fiscal years. Again, the contract period begins May 2023 and ends December of 2024, with 1-year extension available. Funding is intended to support participants enrolled in the program for a minimum of 1 year after enrollment. So we're looking at, we just based on the eligible cost based on the 150 for the year. So we're looking at, for the actual participants, the award amount that should be geared towards that to support that initiative should be 3.1. Any program and administrative costs should go up to $547,000 or 15% or less. And just a little side note with the 1 year inspection, only just to don't assume that your contract or your budget will be extended for another year. It's always at the discretion of the city, again, based on the availability of funds, the need to extend the services, and how the respondent performs. Budgets and costs. So again, the total is 3.6. We're looking at, for 300 total participants will be 3.1. 15% max should be used for program and administrative costs. So we're asking to submit a budget for 1 year. The maximum allocated amount for this RFP for 1 year is 1.8. Contract term is May 2023 to December of 2024. And we're asking for any match for the program should be at 10% or less. Things to keep in mind. So when you are putting together this budget for the RFP, we're really going to be looking at it just to see exactly how you're planning to spend these funds. The cost category definitions are attached as budget instructions in every RFP. Be thoughtful and inclusive in developing your budget and apply for your program's actual cost, which you really think you're going to be spending. Again, we cannot give you more money than what you asked for. However, we could give you less. We use the reasonable cost questions on the application to discuss how you determine the costs reflected in the budget, because we really want to know the thought process behind that. And we want to talk about a little bit with common errors that we see a lot of mistakes in. Fringes, remember to check your calculations. When it comes to supply, these are frequently under or over budget. Client assistance. If this is an appropriate allowable cost, don't forget to include it. Make sure that your job description titles and your job descriptions uploads have the same title. Also put a brief job description in the budget document if you have not discussed it in your application. We really want to be specific in what's the staff, what are their titles, and exactly what is their role in this. Put your budget in the appropriate column and remember to show your match. Eligibility, evaluation, and selection process. So we're looking at respondents to apply either as a single agency or a lead agency with multiple agencies serving as subcontractors. This RFP is open to non-for-profits and faith-based organizations, and the evaluation process. So each eligible proposal will be evaluated on the strengths of the proposal and the responsiveness to the selection criteria. So we're going to be looking at these like subheadings. So we're community selection. You'll be giving a maximum of 25 points. We're going to be looking at organizational capacity, the strength of the proposed program. That's a really big one that we really want you guys to really be detailed and show what is it that you're aiming to do. Performance management and outcomes. How is it that you're going to address and meet those metrics? Reasonable cost, budget justification, and leverage of funds. This is also important to know exactly how the money is going to be spent. And being good stewards, as we all are, we want to make sure that it's being used in an appropriate manner. Deadline. So you know that the RFP was released last Friday. Applications are due March 23rd at noon. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's it. It's done. Noon. It's closed.
Right. So now I think we're going to take a short break and answer questions from the audience. We have a couple in here already. And then I'll continue on about how to actually make your application in the e-procurement environment. And then we can break and again have more questions. All of the questions that you ask are going to be will be answered on paper and uploaded as an amendment document, which you will have to accept. That's one of the things I'm going to go through in my half of the presentation here. So you can review, if you don't catch the question, you'll be able to see it again as the amendment document. So the first question is, if an agency expects to serve a lower number than 150 clients per year, are they still eligible to apply? Good question. So somebody's going to have to unmute here to answer that question because it's not one that I feel I know the answer to.
I'm sorry, Julia, could you restate the question?
Sure. It's if an agency expects to serve a lower number than 150 clients per year, are they still eligible to apply?
I'll jump in for that. No, the goal is to reach 150 participants per year for a total of 300. If you do not think you can do that number, we suggest that perhaps you join in partnership with another organization. We welcome collaborations of that kind, but the goal is to reach 150 participants a year. So you should submit a proposal to reach the maximum, to reach that minimum number of participants.
So then the other question, next question is the match cash or in kind or both?
That can be both.
Is it necessary to have a brick and mortar location?
You would need to detail in your proposal how you would be able to accomplish the goals of the program without a brick and mortar location. I won't say that it's necessary, but you would just have to demonstrate in your proposal that you have the capacity to meet the requirements without a brick and mortar location.
Can I add to that, Mark? Mark's answer was great. We'd absolutely want to know what that would look like. But in working with returning residents, again, we want to meet them where they're at and meet, their needs. So again, you would have to really clarify how you plan to serve this population in a really robust and well-rounded way without having a brick and mortar location. Many of these individuals do not have computers, laptops, tablets, or phones that they can actually leverage to engage fully, comprehensively, and effectively in a program.
Thank you. At this point, we don't seem to have any other questions. I might give it a couple of seconds, but then we're going to move on, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the how do you actually make an application in the city's e-procurement system. All DFSS applications have to be accepted through this system. There's no way around it, and because it's a computer system that's actually a platform that's managed by the Department of Procurement Services, the hard deadline that Cindy referenced is beyond our control. The only way we can accept a late application is to actually reissue the entire RFP and basically start all over. So that is something that I will be stressing in terms of don't make sure you get your application in early. So start early. I'm going to register to iSupplier and the e-procurement system as soon as possible if you don't already have an iSupplier account with us. There are links further in this in the PowerPoint slides as to where you go to do that. It will take a few days. So you go into iSupplier, you fill out a form, you upload a few documents, and then you'll get an invitation from the iSupplier system to start your application. And that will take anywhere between hours and up to 5 days, I've heard. It's usually pretty quick, but I like to make sure that, be prepared. So this is not something you do last minute. Just so you know the terminology, iSupplier is the platform where potential vendors have their accounts. And you use your iSupplier account to access the e-procurement system, which houses all of the procurement activities from the RFPs, which is what you're going to make it. So you're going to make an application into e-procurement, and then all the way through vouchering and closeout. Sort of a cradle to grave system that we have there. And so, you'll use your iSupplier account, which is yours, to e-procurement. When you're preparing to do your RFP, I always tell people, please read the RFP narrative document, read the scope, read the selection criteria and application questions closely. All of these things are developed linked together. So we use from our scopes and comes the selection criteria. From the selection criteria come the application questions. And then there's sort of all of those things are triaged to form our evaluate tools. So if you're looking for guidance or you're wondering what the direction should be, look at the RFP document, because that's really going to give you some direction about what we are in fact looking for. I always tell people to avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting early, and to plan on your submission taking 30 to 60 minutes. I'm also really push for people to try to submit a day early. I can tell you that at this point, for your particular group, even though we might not be expecting, tens or hundreds of applicants for this particular RFP, I know that there's a lot of RFPs out throughout the city system, and that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different RFPs due within 2 days of the due date for this one, which means that it might be harder to get a hold of me or the procurement staff if you need technical assistance. So I would really plan on testing out the system if you're new to it, get familiar with it, practice submitting. You can submit and pull back and amend your application as many times as you want up until the due date. And I will go through some slides about how you make the submission and how you accept your application, how you accept an amendment to the application. So, remember, when you're working in the e-procurement environment, there's a 4,000 character limit for all the questions, and that's an individual question. That limit includes punctuation and spaces, and that you should. And I always tell people to use spell check and to attach all the required attachments. But you're gonna. I tell people also, once you submit, that application is not going to be accessible to you except in a PDF form. So if you want to use some language and you want to get those and the system isn't going to count for you these 4,000 characters per question. So you're going to need to. I really encourage people to download your questions, write your application in a Word software environment, and then upload it back into the e-procurement environment, so you have a copy of what you are. We have had to send people their applications post-award. They're like, oh, don't really remember what I wrote. Don't be that person. Who wants to have that conversation? No one. I see somebody in the chat has asked where they can get the recording. This recording will be posted to the DFSS web YouTube page, who knew? And then it will be and that link will be posted to the DFSS website under the specific funding opportunity for this RFP. So if you go to the alerts or funding opportunity sections on the DFSS website of the City of Chicago, you will be able to click and find a link. That won't be up for about 3 to 5 business days, though. There is a little bit of a lag. So in terms of, we say, don't wait until the last minute, try to submit early. Late applications are not accepted. And then a little bit of tip, don't use the back button on your browser while completing the application because it will basically stop saving your work. And eventually when you go to save it, it will give you an error message and throw you out. And when you go back in, you will not have any book saved since you hit that back button. I often like to say, save often, submit early is kind of my mantra. If I was going to get a tattoo, I think that I might do that right now. And then, as I mentioned before, you can submit your application and amend it later up until the due date or time. You can't amend it after the due date. So we ask that all questions that you might have post this webinar, you can give them to Cindy since she's the program person, but you can also put them through the e-procurement system. You're going to need to do that by logging into your iSupplier account. If you have questions about how to work, you're having problems with e-procurement itself, you can email customer support at cityofchicago.org, or you can make use of the e-procurement hotline, which is 312-744-4357. But do note that the hotline operates only during the business hours of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I have not as much access to the inner workings of the e-procurement system, but you can also call me, and my phone number and email are at the end of this presentation and in the RFP document in the application on e-procurement. You can call me, and I'm certainly happy to talk you through any minor problems you might be having. I have a million handouts and screenshots that I can send you. There's also stuff that is, that also put things posted in the training materials, put the website there, and that you would look under in the training materials, online training materials section, you would just look under delegate agency because that's the kind of contracts that DFSS does, and that would push you to the technical assistance documents that are most tailored to your kind of an application. So I remember save often and submit early. Just so you know that the selection and transition timelines, we have this webinar today. The applications are going to be due in a month, basically, 12 o'clock, right? Except you're all going to get it in on March 20th because you are early birds. I can just feel it. And then our program actually is going to start on May 1st of 2023. So moving along, I'm now going to talk about two very common things you're going to have to do in the e-procurement environment. And one is how to accept an amendment, and the other is how to submit your application. So we do amendments to give you more information, to clarify information that we put out there, and to alert you of any changes. So we most commonly do an amendment to post the webinar question and answers, and the questions and the answers to the questions that we have received via email or phone call during the during the RFP process period, the application period about it. So that's why we do amendments. We also do amendments if something changes, if we need to extend the due date, if we find we've gotten we note that there was an error or that there was something that we felt like we really needed to clarify. So that's why we do an amendment. And it's important or valuable to actually read the amendment. So just as a kickoff, this is the screen that you're going to see if you were starting to do your application. If we didn't have an amendment, you would just go over here to this actions bar on the right-hand side and set it to create quote and then hit go, and that would bring you to start your amendment. But instead, you're going to get, because there is an amendment, in this case, you're going to see this warning, and it's going to ask you to view the amendment history. And when you click on this view amendment history, most things that in the e-procurement environment can be navigated by hitting the blue stuff. So anything that's blue generally will take you to somewhere else. So here you're going to click on a view amendment history, and it's going to take you to it's going to take you to this screen. So here, if you want to look at your RFP document, you're going to click on this document number here. You'll see in the middle here, there's this amendment description, which is a little one sentence that talks about what what the amendment is about. So most of the time for us, it's going to be this amendment has the webinar question and answers. This amendment has, this amendment clarifies that we found that we wanted to correct something in the RFP document about who can apply, or whatever it is. It's going to be the one page, the little one sentence. And then to look at the amendment document itself, you're going to hit this review changes little eyeglass or infinity sign. And after you've looked at all of those things, you're going to be you're willing to accept or not start the acceptance process by acknowledging the amendment. When you hit this acknowledge amendment, it's on the upper or lower right-hand side. It will take you to this screen. And at this screen, you're going to accept the terms and conditions. You're basically acknowledging the amendment. You click the box saying that you accept the terms and conditions of the RFQ and acknowledge the changes made to the RFQ amendment document. And after that, you're going to hit acknowledge, which will take you to this next screen where you confirm your acknowledgement. You're going to just say yes. If you say no, it's going to take you to the screen before that I just showed you. I don't know why anybody would say no, but you do have that option. So, have fun with that. And so you're going to hit yes. And then you're going to go to this final terms and conditions page where you attest that you have read and accepted the terms and conditions by checking this small box on the bottom. And then you're going to hit accept. You can do that on the upper or lower right-hand side. So many choices. And that is how you will have accepted your amendment. At that point, when you hit that box, that accept, it's going to, if you've already started an application, it's going to draw all of the information from that you had put in your application. It's going to push it into the new amended RFP document, template application, and you can just go forward, continuing your application. If you're just starting an application, it will put you into the fresh new application page so that you can get started. So now we're going to talk about how do you submit your application. So this is, you've accepted your amendments, you've written your stuff, you're feeling good. It's 3 days before this is due, and you are like on top of your game. It's like you're having, a personal best on RFP writing and submitting. Anyway, so you're in that space and you hit save draft because everybody knows you got to save your draft all the time. And that's not at all compulsive of you to suggest that. But you're going to save your draft and then you're going to hit continue. When you hit continue, the e-procurement system is basically going to take a scan of your entire RFP application. And it's going to kind of flag stuff that it thinks you might have done wrong or that you might need to pay attention to. So don't be afraid if you're new to this process that you might get several of these little error messages all lined up. And then if you're me, the first time that happens to you, you're like, you sort of freak out. But it's not like a big thing. This is how you solve the stuff. So a very common error message that you're going to get is this RFP control requires you to quote on all lines. This is something that is, a mismatch between the kinds of RFPs that DFSS does and the system itself. So we ask that you put in a budget and you attach that budget. It's an Excel spreadsheet. You're going to upload it to us, and that is what we are looking for. The e-procurement system, which was built to do all the procurement for the city, whether it be workforce development program or paving a road, has this lines feature. And so you're going to click on the little tab that says lines. You're going to put in placeholder numbers for that. And then when you go back and save, that error message should disappear because you will have put in placeholder numbers. It's long suggested to people that they put in their winning lottery numbers, but nobody has ever taken it. But you guys could be the first. I have a good feeling that. So after you do that, here's another very common error message that we get. It says a quote value is required for requirement first name. If you are like me and you're not a native e-procurement speaker, that really means that sentence has very little meaning to you, but we're going to decode. So you're going to say here, okay, requirement. The requirements is e-procurement speak for the application questions and the application sentences. And then, so you're going to do a requirement and, okay, so thank you, Jackie. You totally, now I'm just like, I'm distracted. Okay, so the quote value here is answer. I guess it kind of makes sense. It's not the first thing I would call an answer, but here we are. The requirements is the application section, and each application question has its own name. In this case, it's saying in the application, the translation of this is in the application section. You didn't put in first name. Please put that into the box. And hopefully your name won't exceed 4,000 characters. I'm pretty sure it won't. But you answer that question, and then it will be then that error message too will go away. It will be, and then you'll be perfect, right? Your life will be perfect. So once your application is free from errors, you're ready to proceed and submit. And so at this point, when you click submit or continue, rather, you're not going to get the Danger Will Robinson error messages all over the place. You're going to get this beautiful review and submit phase. And at this point, okay, here, remember how I said you can't access your application after in a non-PDF format after you submit it to us? This is where you can get a printable view. This will download a PDF of your application if you want to have it in a PDF format. And so that I would highly suggest you have that just for your files in case you need it. And so at this point, you're gonna you'll hit printable view, you'll download that. That's pretty straightforward. You can save your draft 400 more times if you're me. And then you're gonna review and submit. And basically it's gonna you're gonna scroll, you can scroll all the way down. It's kind of like voting, except you don't vote. But you can scroll all the way down and you can see your all of your answers. And you can check your work. And if you need to, if you're like, oh, there's a huge mistake, you can go back and you can make your edits before you submit. So at this point, you're going to check your work. You see, here's your attachments section up here. Here are all the questions, here are all the answers. And at the bottom, you're going to have an electronic signature. So to do the electronic signature, you're going to put in your name and your title, and then you're going to check the box up here if you're like me and you check, if you check the box first, it will give you an error message saying that you didn't put in your name and your title. But you're going to do that, you're going to work through that. And then over here, I couldn't put it on one page. You'll see over here, there's this little box that says submit. You're going to click submit. It's going to be awesome. And then you're going to get this screen that says it's a confirmation screen. So the e-procurement system is going to give you this confirmation screen so that you know that you got your application into us. It's also going to send an email within 24 hours to the email address associated with the application. Often stuff from e-procurement, just saying, ends up in people's spam or junk. So look for stuff in your spam and junk file when you're working with the e-procurement system. And maybe eventually your system will be like, oh, no, this isn't spam or junk. But I do find that a lot of stuff that I get from e-procurement sometimes ends up there. So I've just made it a habit. And then if you really want that immediacy, feel free to call me or email me, and I'm more than happy to confirm your application, that we accepted or received your application and are super happy to get it. I can see your application like the minute you hit send or submit rather, and so it's really not a problem for me to check and confirm that for you. Sometimes it's better than waiting 24 hours, to be honest with you. So at this point, I have said all I really want to say about the e-procurement system. I have received a few more questions, and here I'm just going to put this up here. If you have program questions, Trinity or Cindy Rivera, the people to contact, their contact information is in the RFP body, and maybe Cindy, you can just give people your contact information here and now, and then we have let's see, a couple of other questions that we received while I was talking about e-procurement. So here we are with what percentage is the match amount and what page of the RFP can I refine that requirement? So take it away. I'm sure one of you guys knows that.
I know for me, I have to look specifically where it's at.
So the match is usually 10 or 15%. I know in the other slides we did suggest a 10% match. And that would be in the section of the RFP, usually in the contract information section, which is, depending on the length of the RFP, is probably around page 12-ish. While Cindy's looking that up, here we have, can we get access to the steps to submitting the application sent to us by email? Certainly, Mr. McKay, if you put your email in the chat, I can send that to you right away. It's also will be in this webinar. When the webinar slides are posted to the DFSS website, all those slides will be in there as well. Okay, and I see your email. Yeah, it's not a problem. And I don't know, are there other questions? So while we're waiting, I guess, if people have other questions, this is kind of the, this is obviously the time to ask. If not, you can always call Cindy or Trinity or me about your RFP experience. If you have programmatic questions, you really need to reach out to Cindy or Trinity. If you ask me a programmatic question, I am just going to refer you to them because they are the experts. If you have a question about e-procurement, feel free to call me. I spend a lot of time hanging out with the procurement system, and we can try to get you straightened out and solve whatever your problems are. Cindy, I was going to see maybe you could put what I know Cindy's, let's see, I'm going to put Cindy's email, which I believe is Cindy Rivera at cityofchicago.org. Let's see if
if that person could, they could just email me, and then I'm trying to look for it. So I'm trying to, rush to look for it, but let me take time. So whoever asked that question, just email me, and then I could just answer them.
But we will also answer, we will provide that answer as part of the answer to the webinar questions that we will post in the amendment. So we'll get back to you on that one. And then Cindy, since your email and address and phone number are not in this slide, you're Cindy Rivera at cityofchicago.org, or are you Cindy?
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
And then what is your phone number, please? It's
312-746 8858.
8858. So I'm going to put that in the chat for everyone. And again, that will also be included in the amendment document. I believe Cindy is actually listed as the program person for this RFP in that amendment document. So her stuff will be there. And then here's another question. What do you mean about match amount? So match amount, we typically require or ask that people provide a matching fund. So if, and at this point, I'm going to go to the 10%. So 10 or 15%, you would basically demonstrate a 10 or 15% match or leverage in your budget document, and you would put it into that share column. So in this case, you would say you could do really because you don't have to have a cash match, which you can show an in-kind match would be demonstrating what, like amounts that you're leveraging. So you could be leveraging your rent space, you could be leveraging staff time, you could be leveraging supplies, like everybody uses the copier, but you're not asking for copier paper in your budget to us, but we all know you're using copier paper. So that could be something that you would use as match, or something akin to copier paper. I think, a percentage of your rent, or a percentage of the utilities, a percentage of staff time that, your staff is going to be assigned to work in this program 20%, but that they're really going to be there 25%, but that month, but their salary is matched by another organization. So that's what we mean when we say match. I hope I've been thorough enough, and anybody else, please jump in if you'd like to add to my definition here. So that's what we're talking about. About when we say cash match, or when we mean in kind or match, or cash match. If you just have cash laying around and you want to put it towards this program, we'll take that too. But most of the time, that's not the case. So if we don't have any further questions on this RFP today, I'm going to close this webinar, give you a little time back. And
I have a reminder. I have a quick reminder. So we have the housing navigation webinar scheduled for tomorrow. February 24th at 1 p.m. Again, respondents can apply to both the reentry and employment and the housing navigation RFP. And again, thank you for joining us. Good luck, and we look forward to reviewing your amazing RFPs. And from DFSS, enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, I would say that as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to read your things. And call if you have, if you're having a problem, or you have a question, or you just need a little support. That's, you know, happy to help you out, and thank you all for all the work you are already doing for the citizens of Chicago. And have a wonderful Thursday. I hope it stopped raining.